What's up? Welcome back. I'm John Stark, MarkTheMovieGuy.com, your favorite blind film critic, and today I'm going to be talking about my final Oscar predictions of 2024. They're not my final predictions, but it is literally New Year's Eve. So this is the last day for me to do Oscar predictions of 2024. I've done several categories with Alex Howard from The Dark Room, and we just haven't gotten around to finishing out our lists. So some of this is updated because my thoughts have changed, but let's run them down. Let's run down the lists. I don't think I'm going to do every single category here, but I might give you some thoughts on below the line categories. Primarily concerned with top of the line. I don't want you to have to sit around forever. By the way, if you think I talk too much, you know YouTube has speed modification, right? You can just listen to me talk faster. Just a thought. Just a thought. Um, all right, so let's start out with supporting actress, because this is an interesting race. So for supporting actress, I'm thinking this is coming down to uh, what everybody else is saying, which is true. Ariana versus Zoe Saldana. Ariana Grande for Wicked and Zoe Saldana for Amelia Perez. The two supporting actresses from musical are definitely going to be battling it out as we start seeing these ceremonies giving awards. They've already sort of been kind of dominating this race a little bit. Nobody else is really winning these categories. It's not really that spread out. It feels like it's going one way or the other. Every once in a while, somebody will take a swing at another nominee, but it does feel like this race is sort of centered around these two people, which is why I would say these are the only two locks in the category. Um, Now, for the rest of the list, uh, for spots 3 and 4, these are what I would call what I'm leaning towards safe bets. Although there are a lot of actresses that are vying for this, so this is very tentative. In third place right now, based on the vibe, based on the fact that I think her film is going to get a pretty solid amount of nominations, um, and she's also riding the wave of first time nominees, like the first two would be. I think Oscars are going to finally nominate Isabella Rossellini for Conclave. I think this is going to happen. I think she's campaigning the hell out of it. She's been around forever. Some people will say that doesn't matter. I call bullshit. I think it matters when you are up there in age. I think the older you are, the more it matters, which is why the whole Demi Moore thing is working, is because she's older. It doesn't work so much on younger actors, even if they've been snubbed a couple times. So somebody like Danielle Detweiler doesn't work on because she hasn't been around a long. She doesn't have the body of work. She hasn't worked with everybody. But when you start getting these actresses who have worked with everybody, who have been in every movie, and they amass this goodwill towards them, I think that absolutely does matter. And I think Isabella has done everything, and she seems to be picking up everywhere she needs to be picked up. The remaining groups, I don't see BAFTA not nominating her. Conclave just feels like the kind of movie that BAFTA's going to love. They were really supportive of Berger with All Quiet on the Western Front. He won director there. So I think Conclave is still going to perform well at BAFTA. Plus, they have 6 slots. We have 5. If we had 6, this year would be so much easier. And just like the best actress race would be better. Actor would be harder because you'd be like, well, my God, it's anyway. But yeah, Isabella, I think is looking good. I wouldn't consider her lock though. Like, don't put money on it, but I'm going for Isabella. My fourth place spot, I feel a little less secure in this because she tends to kind of be the afterthought, but I also think A24 is really trying to roll this out at like the right time, and they could fuck this up. They could iron claw this. It's something that we really haven't fully accepted, is that there could be, because A24 obviously did not have the best rollout for Sing Sing. That's official. We know that. Like, that's a thing we've all accepted. They fucked up Sing Sing. Um, but The Brutalist, there's some interesting things that I know about The Brutalist. I know, for example, that it did not submit screeners to CCA. However, that does not mean that they did not submit for voting for the win after the nominees. That when people have to then vote for the winner, that more people hadn't seen The Brutalist. They just needed to get it to a nomination. So the people who nominated it, the fact that it was nominated at CCA those were based on people who were able to see it at festivals or who were in another critics group that got a screener or whatever, who had some other method of getting it, because A24 did not submit it. They also did not submit it to one of my critics groups where it was deemed ineligible. So they have been doing, I don't know what the fuck with this movie, but they've been like trying to keep it like the best kept secret. But sometimes that backfires. And sometimes you get a movie that's the best kept secret and it's released too late and the campaign doesn't happen for it. Like Origin. They tried that with Origin at the last moment. Neon tried to push Origin and it didn't happen. And Origin got no nominations. There was a last minute push for Ben Affleck for The Tender Bar. That didn't happen. So sometimes if you write it a little bit too late, it doesn't happen. Luckily, people have been talking about The Brutalist long enough that I think it'll happen, but I'm a little bit worried that Felicity Jones being the third, seen as the third, could fall off this list. So she's my number 4. I have her solidly in as being a safe bet, because I think at the end of the day, The Brutalist is now in theaters. I think people are seeing it. I think this is a kind of film that Oscar voters are going to respond to. She's a previous nominee, and she's great. She's great in the movie. So I will lean slightly into Felicity Jones. So for the 5th place spot, this is kind of interesting, because who it should be is Danielle Detweiler for The Piano Lesson. But Danielle, I feel like, is going to get snubbed again. I feel like that's going to happen for her, and The Piano Lesson is not going to be nominated at the Academy Awards. So it's just going to get completely snubbed as a film. It'll be one of the films that'll be listed that people will be like, these films got 0 nominations. And one of them will be The Piano Lesson. It went from being a potential Best Picture nominee to getting nothing. That happens a lot. And sadly for Danielle, it'll happen for her. She deserves the nomination, but I don't think she's going to get it. And there are a couple other people who are nipping at this bud, who are all fighting for this 5th place spot. You have the possibility that Emilia Perez overclocks and that Selena Gomez also gets in. You have the possibility that Nickel Boys performs well and actually gets an acting nomination and gets Anjanou Ellis-Taylor in there. She has not been appearing everywhere. So I don't really consider her a strong 5th place bet. But there has been a film that has been overclocking. There's also, there's some other nominees too, like maybe a supporting actress from A Complete Unknown, like Elle Fanning getting her first Oscar nomination, or Monica Barbaro. I would entertain either one of those. A long shot for Joan Jen for Dee Dee. She's appeared a couple places, but not really enough to make me feel like, oh yeah, that's definitely happening. But the one that I think that could surprise is Margaret Qualley from The Substance. She's not even somebody I voted for, but I think if The Substance is going to perform, I think Qualley's going to come with it. And the thing, I'll tell you why, and it kind of pissed me off. The reason why I'm putting her in the 5th place spot, and is the Florida Film Critics Circle picked her in supporting actress, but not Demi in lead. And that's unacceptable, because it's literally like the reverse of the film. But if enough people are remembering to vote for Margaret Qualley, that she gets into the supporting actress race for a critics group when Demi Moore doesn't, then that means she's registering with people on her own, not just as a, like, I love The Substance, so I'm voting for it in every single category. But she actually got enough votes to beat out other people for that spot. And that is a weird occurrence. It's a random occurrence, and I get none of those people are Oscar voters, but it does show that people are independently liking her and that she's not just following the film. So I think because of that, Margaret Qualley, if they're going to go for The Substance, if they're going to say, fine, we'll do a horror movie, we haven't done one in a while, and they go for The Substance, I think Margaret will come along with it. So I'm going to give Margaret the 5th place spot. I would love to see Danielle on this list, though. So those are my top 5 for supporting actress. Uh, Moving on to supporting actor. Arguably, there are 6 people, sort of 7, competing for these spots. Everybody else is gone. They've all vanished. There are only 7 remaining actors. 6 of them, really. There's a 7th one. I'll even say who that is. Because the 6 actors are legitimately vying, and there's a 7th person who the question just is, will Oscar voters respond to the movie? If the answer is no, then no one gets in, and the film gets no nominations. If the Oscar voters do respond to the movie, then I think both people get in, and both people surprise and steal the spot. So it's possible that they could both get in, and that is The Apprentice. So I think Jeremy Strong he's in this weird place where the film didn't do enough box office. He did just get a Golden Globe nomination. He has picked up some nominations in some places, but it's just weird to think of like where he goes. Could he get a SAG nomination? Maybe. Yeah, he could. Could he get BAFTA? I don't know, but maybe. Like it's with every single voting body, it's like, will this voting body vote for The Apprentice or not? And with some voting bodies for Sebastian, you see him popping in to the actor race with a different man. And I think a lot of that has to do with the fact that they don't want to vote for The Apprentice, but they realize that Sebastian had 2 great performances this year, so they just back the other one. So in some ways, him having 2 performances is actually hurting The Apprentice also. So it's very interesting what's happening with The Apprentice. I don't know. I'm leaving it out for now because it's so hard to project whether or not people will take a risk on it, because some groups do and some groups don't. It just seems to be it's not even a consistency thing. I don't even think it matters a consistency thing for this movie, because he could get no more nominations and still get an Oscar nomination from this. It just depends on, does this specific voting body feel like voting for The Apprentice? Are they going to take that risk? There's something political about voting for The Apprentice, I think, that's attached to it, and people are having to debate that. So the 6 serious contenders for supporting actor are obviously Kieran Culkin, who's in the lead. He gets my first place spot. He's pretty much running away with it this year. He does have competition, I would say, primarily from my number 2. The only other person I'm really considering to lock in at this point is Guy Pearce for The Brutalist. There's a chance Guy Pearce could win. He's been around forever. His performance in The Brutalist, it just depends on how far The Brutalist goes. But both of them, it is their first nomination, so almost like getting the nomination is the victory in and of itself. So below that, the 4 people vying for the last 3 spots are Clarence Macklin for Sing Sing, Denzel Washington for Gladiator 2, Edward Norton for Complete Unknown, and Yor Borsov for Nora. So oddly enough, A24 is going to try to push Sing Sing again in January. At the same time, they're also trying to give life to The Brutalist, which is odd. Clarence didn't get the supporting at the Golden Globe, but he's picked up enough things other places. He has an interesting narrative behind him, but then again, he could also be seen as too new, and he doesn't need an Oscar nomination for this. Sort of like what we did last year with May December, where he was picking up a lot of steam and it went nowhere. That does happen. So Clarence could be the one to be left off the list. Denzel, Gladiator 2, let's be honest, he is the highest possible nomination for Gladiator 2. It's not getting any higher than this. It's Denzel, so there's all the reasons to vote for him because he seems to get in. He gets in for things like Roman J. Israel. So people just vote for him. Whether or not he could win or whether or not it's his best performance, it doesn't really matter. It's I believe, his 10th nomination. So there's betting against him feels weird. Edward Norton for Complete Unknown, he's also been nominated a couple times. He's got sort of this transformative performance that actors really like. Complete Unknown feels like it's bubbling in for maybe that 10th place spot for that Best Picture. Like it could get in at Best Picture. Chalamet's definitely in. It's not like a huge Oscar contender, but it seems like he could come along with it. So, and then the last one is your Borisov for Anora. Now, Anora is like a leading Best Picture contender, leading director contender, leading actress contender. So why wouldn't another actor from this movie come along with it? So, what I'm doing is somebody's got to go. Somebody has got to go. And the question is who? And at the end of the day, I'm filling out my card like this. I'm going to pick Yor Borisov for Anora because I think people are voting for Anora. I think people liked Anora, and I think Yor is somebody who is, as people... I think the big question at the beginning was who from? Because Mark Edelstein could easily be voted for Anora as well. But it seems like most people aren't going for him. They're going for Yor Borisov. So I think he'll pick up the nomination. I'm also going to go for Clarence Macklin for Sing Sing and say that A24 gets us in front of enough people at the last minute that I've seen his performance. He's really good. His narrative is really strong. And he's also a writer on Sing Sing. And it feels like the kind of thing that could happen. So I'm going to say Clarence Macklin for Sing Sing. And then for the final spot, I'm going to say that Edward Norton gets it for Complete Unknown. And I will shockingly say Denzel Washington misses out for Gladiator 2. You know, at a certain point, you have to think, how many people really like Gladiator 2? How many people really are voting for that? It's not necessarily, it didn't, on the short list, it didn't necessarily overperform. It didn't, kill it at the Tech Awards. So it's possible Denzel gets snubbed here. It's also possible, though, that Jeremy Strong gets a nomination and knocks like Edward Norton or Clarence or somebody out of the list. That is a possibility. He's just off in his own land. He's like a question mark. Just a giant... He'll happen or he won't happen. And not for reasons for anything else other than, are they going to take the risk on The Apprentice? Has nothing to do with his performance or the box office for the movie or anything like that. It's all about, do you want to see The Apprentice on the ballot? So, let's do some... I'm going to go to actor because actress is like, oh my God. Actor is just so much easier. Actor is like the easiest category right now. So actor as a lock, we have Adrian Brody for The Brutalist, who most people think is winning for this. Would be his second Oscar, which is one of the reasons why I think The Brutalist is performing so strong, is because Adrian Brody is the presumed frontrunner of this race. I also think he has a strong chance that Timothée Chalamet could take it from him for Complete Unknown, because Timmy has a kind of performance, well, we've had has one before, where he's playing a real person. It's a transformative performance that way. And this is his second nomination, not his first. He is young, but again, it's his second nomination, not his first. Would be a second nomination. Should be his third. He should have been nominated for Beautiful Boy, but that's another story. And then we have, so those two are locks. And then we have two that I'm like really sure about. Ray Fiennes for Conclave and Coleman Domingo for Sing Sing. I think they're getting in. Because as the Globe showed, even when they hated Sing Sing, they still nominated Coleman, because this category is just... the top four are just so far away from everybody else. So who's left? Who is left in this category? The safe bet is to go with Daniel Craig for Queer. It is his first nomination, and stuff like that does matter. People don't like Queer as much as a movie. There's also Hugh Grant for Heretic, who's been picking up a lot of nominations. And if this voting body is more receptive to horror movies this year because of the substance, it's possible they're also watching Heretic. It's possible Hugh Grant gets nominated for Heretic. Sebastian Stan is also in there for A Different Man, because he could end up getting what he's been getting, which I think is largely extra support because people also did like him for The Apprentice, but they can't vote for him for The Apprentice, so they vote for him for A Different Man. And there's still people who believe Glenn Powell's going to happen for Hitman, so I will acknowledge that by tipping the hat. I suppose in an outside chance there's Jesse Eisenberg for Real Pain, but the hasn't not a lot has really materialized for him. If he won Best Actor in a Comedy, maybe I would consider the momentum coming out of that if he wins that at the Golden Globes. Um, we'll see. But uh, so yeah, those are kind of that's kind of the that's it. So the question is, who do you vote for? And when I'm looking at the other people who are running sort of against him, it's not Paul Mescal. He's not happening. Don't even don't look at me like that. Uh, there's no Paul Mescal anymore. Just stop pretending. Gladiator 2 is not happening. Um, but when I look at these nominees and I think of everything, it's like I don't see anyone particularly so strong except the likelihood of Sebastian Stan magically getting in for The Apprentice. I actually think he has a better chance of getting in for The Apprentice as a, like a, oh, whoop, they got him. They picked up Sebastian and Jeremy for The Apprentice. Than he does for A Different Man. So I'm going to stick with Daniel Craig for Queer just because it is his first nomination. I think he's going to get a BAFTA. It's the kind of thing SAG could go for, but also I think SAG is going to mess it up. And I think they're going to pick like Hugh Grant for Heretic. And it's going to make it look like it's a little bit tighter of a race. So that's actress now. God help us. So let's build the actress race because that's easier. So who do we have to have? We have to have Mikey Madison for Anora. She's definitely getting in. She's the only person that I would put as a lock. I do not see a world in which Mikey Madison does not get a nomination. I don't think that's happening. Anora cannot be as strong of a film without her. It's not even like Barbie. I mean, it's not even that situation. I mean, she basically is the whole movie. So I think she's in. And from there, good luck. So who do I want to build the top? None of these people are locks. They're all just my guesses. Because there are no locks in this category. Because there's so many people competing for spots. I push back against the idea that Angelina Jolie and Carla Sofia Gascon are considered locks. Simply because months ago, people were putting them in everywhere. I do not think either one of those ladies are locks, and I think they're both in performances that people are not triumphing. So the performances, what I'm looking at are performances that people are screaming about. The performances that people are fighting for. And I don't see anybody fighting for Angelina Jolie. I don't see people fighting for Carla. I've heard people talk about it. I challenged one of my own groups to this when I talked about Angelina. I was like, you know what? I never hear anybody going, oh my God, I loved Angelina Jolie. She's my favorite performance of the year. And some quiet people were like, I loved Angelina Jolie. She was in my top 5. I thought she did a good job. But is she your favorite? Like, is she your to win? So I'm looking at like, who do we know has passion and love and fire behind it? And the one person that I keep coming back to is Demi Moore for The Substance. It's like if that shit's happening, it's fucking happening. And the whole campaign for this movie has been based around her. So I actually think she's in second place. I think she's been picking up as much as she could possibly pick up for a movie as gory as The Substance. It's actually impressive. If she gets snubbed for The Substance, it will be the biggest snub, and horror fans will be. I don't even know, dude. I wouldn't even tell people I was an Oscar voter. I don't even think they're safe. Like, it's so at this point, she's done everything she needs to as a serious Oscar contender, and there's this perceived bias against the whole genre. So if she doesn't get in, it's just like, God help you, Oscar voters. Seriously, like, God help them at this point, because you could get away with only voting for Demi and The Substance appears nowhere else, and you'd be fine. But there have been so many other people that you've snubbed before that have given great performances in horror movies that have appeared throughout award season, but not to the extent that Demi has Toni Collette did not get the love that Demi's been getting. It's not a thing. So Demi is everywhere, and I just don't see her not getting nominated. I think she's appearing on ballots. Even if they're not voting for the substance anywhere else, I think they're voting for Demi Moore. I was shocked that she didn't get in at Florida Film Critics Circle. It just blew my fucking mind. But it shows the strength of how competitive the category is, which is why I think it's one of the Netflix ladies is not going to get in. That's what this is going to come down to. So Demi Moore she's my number 2 spot. Number 3 spot, another person who is getting like a lot of, and honestly, I wasn't going to predict her. I was not going to predict her because I could see her being left off the list. But the film is still going strong. It's really hard to not say it. The film is dropping on VOD, today, even though it's like number 3 or 4 at the box office. I'm like, you guys don't need to put it on VOD. I mean, it is like $30 or it's like $20 to around $30 to buy. It's like really expensive. So, it's basically like you might as well just go to the movies. Unless you're somebody who wants to watch Wicked like 40 times, then it's a good buy. But yeah, it's Cynthia Erivo, I think, is in for Wicked. I had some qualms, but she's part of this force of Wicked that seems to be happening throughout all of awards season. I don't think she can win, but I do think she's getting the nomination. And I think there's a lot of people who are just checking Wicked. Like, there are a lot of people who are huge Wicked fans, and I think those people are voting for Cynthia. And I think more of them are going to push. I think Ariana's a little bit higher on their list, which is why she's going to be closer to winning. She might win. Get ready for that. But Academy Award winner Ariana Grande is really close to happening. But I think Cynthia is in the actress race. So for my number 4 spot, this is how this kind of peters out. I should probably say I'm kind of down to 4 actresses for the last couple spots here. I acknowledge the fact that Fernanda Torres could happen, but she kind of hasn't been. And it just... but there are enough international voters that if I'm still here, suddenly happens, she could just really fuck up the race. So I'm not putting Fernanda Torres in my list. She's not there. Also, she's had a lovely run, and she might still get in somewhere, like a SAG or a BAFTA, but I do not consider Pamela Anderson's chances at an Oscar nomination to be serious at this point. I think it's just too competitive of a year. It's just not happening. I'm sorry. Tilda Swinton for The Room Next Door. I'm sorry. Golden Globe nominee. Congratulations. You're not happening. June Squibb couldn't even get the Golden Globe nomination. And it's not happening for her either. Zendaya for Challengers. No. It looked like there might have been a renewed interest in Challengers. I don't think it's enough of a renewed interest to get her into the race, so that's a no. I mean, I could keep going down this list of no's of people who are just sadly no. Saoirse Ronan for The Outrun. So what I'm looking at are spots 4 and 5. So what I'm willing to do is I'm willing to predict that at least one of the Netflix ladies gets snubbed. I do not think spots 4 and 5 are Angelina Jolie and Carla Sofia Gascon. I think we've been projecting them for too long, too many times. I think one of them is missing. So, Emilia Perez is an odd movie that premiered at Cannes. It did not peak ever since then. It peaked at Cannes. It has been riding off of love from Cannes this whole time. It's Netflix. When it dropped on Netflix, it did not hit the top 10, and it had backlash on the internet. Now, people have continued to nominate it because critics groups like Emilia Perez, and they put it in there. But the question is a voting body, the elephant in the room here is Carla Sofia Gascon going to become the first openly trans actress to be nominated for Best Actress? Or are we not there yet? Are there still some people who are going to not vote for her? She's not a well-known actress. um, because her English is not as good. She hasn't been able to do as much press, like the actors on actors roundtable stuff. She's not doing that kind of stuff that gets out there. So there are reasons to say that Carla could be the one to not get in. There are also reasons to say Angelina could not be the one to get in. She's been nominated twice in her career, which feels really low. But Maria is not as well received of a movie. It's not looking at too many possibilities as a movie. It could be her and like maybe costumes. You know, like if people really respond to Maria, its package is really low. So it's not like Pablo Larraín's going to sneak into director or anything like that. This is not a Best Picture contender. She was perceived as being, and is still perceived by many, as being the potential to win Who's Not Mikey Madison because of her career narrative. She hasn't won an Oscar since Girl Interrupted. This is seen as being her sort of return. So between the two actresses, I'm actually going to pick Angelina Jolie. And I'm going to give Jolie the edge over Carla right now. And I'm going to predict that Carla Sofia Gascon will be snubbed for Emilia Perez, which will seem very shocking to people. But it was very shocking last year when Margot Robbie didn't get nominated and Greta Gerwig. So, you know, sometimes snubs happen. You know, Danielle Detweiler, the first time for Till, pissed everybody off. There will be snubs. That's the thing, is that there will be snubs that will piss people off. And they won't be snubs from people who you were predicting that were going to fall out of the top 5. Do you know what I'm saying? It's not going to be like, oh man, I can't believe they didn't nominate Saoirse Ronan for The Outrun. It's like nobody was projecting her. Like, it's going to be somebody who you thought was legitimately getting nominated. Where is that going to come from? You know, who are you going to be pissed off about? There will be somebody, and I think it's going to be Carla Sofia Gascon. So the title character, it makes sense, you know. So in 5th place spot, I'm tied between two actresses again, because they're two actresses who I think could easily take this place. Both of them are sort of carrying their movies. They will be the highest nomination for their movie. It's Nicole Kidman for Baby Girl and Marianne Jean-Baptiste for Hard Truths. Now, the safe bet is to pick Nicole Kidman for Baby Girl. Not necessarily a career best performance for her. She's Nicole Kidman, so much like Angelina Jolie, she just feels like somebody who's a safer bet. Sort of like Denzel, who I didn't pick, but I just think Gladiator 2 is a weaker film than Baby Girl is. I think people like Baby Girl a little bit more. So it's not a sequel to anything. It's just it's a thing. A24 is campaigning a lot of movies though. So, as they always are. And then you have Marianne Jean-Baptiste for Hard Truths, which the question is always, can Bleecker Street get her in? And if we're predicting movie is going to get Demi Moore in, or maybe even The Substance into Best Picture, I don't know why not. Marianne has won some awards. She didn't get the Golden Globe nomination. It's the kind of performance where, and because of that, I actually think it's possible she could get in, because it feels like the kind of surprise. It's like, oh my God, they did go for Marianne Jean-Baptiste. Like the nomination you're worried about. It feels like Nicole's a safe bet, but Marianne is somehow she's a radical bet, even though she's won some awards already. So I'm actually going to go with Marianne Jean-Baptiste. Instead of picking two sort of career actresses, adding nominations to their belt with both Angelina and Nicole, I'm going to lean in on Marianne Jean-Baptiste for Hard Truths and say Bleecker Street makes it this year, that her performance is good enough that it just has to get in front of enough people and it'll have the passion to get in there. So those are my 5. I left out Carla and Nicole and a whole bunch of other people because this year is amazing for actresses. Honestly, I'm jealous that the BAFTA has 6 nominees, because it means Carla and Nicole would get in. Do you know what I'm saying? Like, because I think they're right there. If Carla gets snubbed, I don't think she's that far behind. So for Best Director, this is a little bit tougher, because it's like, who do you have to have? Well, I have to have Sean Baker for Anora, and I have to have Brady Corbet for The Brutalist, because I think the race has come down to the two of them. Interestingly enough, I actually think it because she's coming from an international community and there aren't any other female film directors this year to really get behind. I think we're going to see Corley Farja for The Substance. I do. I think if they're, I kind of think they're going to go all in for The Substance as much as they can. I think it's going to be a pretty highly nominated film. Not as much as some of the other films like Wicked stand to really get, but I think Corley gets in. Um, I also think that the big swing of Remo Ross for Nickel Boys, the fact that he made such a bold choice, I think he gets in for that. He's been sort of picking up a decent amount of nominations. So for the last spot, a lot of people would pick Jacques Audiard for Emilia Perez, but I also have Edward Berger for Conclave. I think it's one of those two. I think these are the six. I think Denis sadly is out of contention. Peter Jackson was not nominated for the middle Lord of the Rings movie. I think Denis is not going to be nominated for the middle Dune movie. I love Denis, but sorry. And then like a whole bunch of other nominees who could be here for other movies but are not going to be. I think this is a little bit of a tight year. So for that, so I think the last spot comes down to Jacques Audiard for Emilia Perez, and I was kind of thinking Seed of Sacred Fig could upset here, but it just doesn't seem to really be taking off. That they could pick a director as sort of like a wow, thank you for your courage type of thing. But that's when Nickel Boys started getting sort of the reception. I think Remo Ross kind of took a little bit of hold and kind of knocked out any sort of weird chances for like a outside the box nomination, because he feels like an outside the box nomination that is somehow being endorsed. Like I don't think he's gonna get a DGA nomination, but I think he's gonna get an Oscar nomination, if that makes any sense. He feels like Beast of the Southern Wild to me. That's what it feels like. So I'm going to lean on Edward Berger. And I know that's me stubbing Emilia Perez again, but I just don't think Emilia Perez is a 10 nominee film. I think it's going to do fine. I think it's going to get like 7, but I just don't think it's a 10 nominee film. And I think Conclave is probably like a 7 nominee film as well. And I think Edward Berger comes along with that. So, I mean, he won the BAFTA last year. I mean, he won the BAFTA the last time out that with All Quiet. He did not get nominated at the Oscars. I think they're going to look at him again and be like, damn, this dude directed another solid film that has a shot at winning Best Picture. Towards the end, it had enough steam, especially when you're sitting there watching the ceremony, you're looking at all the wins. You're like, maybe All Quiet on the Western Front's going to win Best Picture. I mean, there's, something had to be in second place. So, and Conclave does feel like it's within striking distance of Best Picture. So I don't think they're going to keep saying no to Edward Berger. But I would not be surprised to see Jacques Audiard here either. So, but right now I'm going with Berger. So that's my 5. Baker. I've heard Corbett and Corbet. I don't know if we're just trying to make his name more fancy or not. We'll find out at the Oscars. Because we're definitely going to hear his name called. And Corley, Remmel, and Edward Berger. Those are my 5. So for Best Picture, who are the 10? Well, I'm definitely going with Anora. Well, I think it's a front runner. I think it's a vulnerable front runner because it's been a front runner for too long, which is why I think there are 3 films that could topple it, that are close, and they just need a path. They just need the right victory to do so, the blessing. And those films are The Brutalist, Wicked, and Conclave, which are going to take my 2, 3, and 4 spots. I think all 4 of those films are in contention to win. So we'll see what happens from that. I shouldn't need to talk too much more about that. I've been predicting them in other places, even with Emilia Perez, even though I just predicted no director, no actress. I still think it's going to get supporting actress. I still think it's going to get, plenty of technical categories. It'll probably get 2 original song nominations just because that category is weird. So yeah, it's gonna pop. It'll have enough nominations that it'll seem like a force, which is why my 5th place spot is, I'm going to say, Amelia Perez is starting off my safe bets. It's not a lock. I only consider the 4 that these are where I'm getting into safe bets. So Amelia Perez is, I think Netflix has pretty much hedged all of its bets on Amelia Perez at this point, and they're just going to keep doing it. So we'll see how that gets there. Plus, it solves we've been having a film that's not in the English language in the top for a while now. Like, there's been a film that's been cracking the top 10 for a while. Last year we had 2 with Anatomy of a Fall and Zone of Interest. So I think we're definitely going to get one, and it looks like Amelia Perez is going to be that film. So I'm going to keep Amelia in there. For the 6th place spot, I actually do think they're going to nominate The Substance. I think this is just a thing. I just think they're just rolling on it. I think with The Substance, there are 3 ways you go. You go all in and say it's getting in everywhere, and they're fully on it. There's the other way where you go, they're only going to nominate Demi, and then they're going to leave it alone. And then the other one is, it's a horror movie, you dumbasses. They're not nominating this, and those are the people who have been burned far too many times. And I love those people, and you are absolutely right. We could all be wrong, and they could but the riots that would happen, like, you thought it was big last year when Margot didn't get nominated, and when Greta, and wait till you see Demi Moore not get nominated for The Substance. I'm telling you, social media platforms crash. So yeah, there are a lot of horror fans out there who are tired of their films not getting recognition. So this is the bone you need to throw this year, is The Substance. I cannot stress that enough. So I think that is in as well. So that is 6 films in. For my 7th film, Amazon really doesn't have anything else other than Nickel Boys right now. I think Nickel Boys it's an interesting film. I don't think it's actually in 7th place, but I think it feels like the kind of film it gets in. It feels like the kind of film that, because of it's so different, but it's also the film that's so polarizing where it could easily get in or not get in. But I'm going to leave it in for now. I'm keeping Nickel Boys. I'm also going to keep Dune. I just want to acknowledge the fact that it's slipped a little bit, and it's down to like 8. I think Dune Part 2 is still going to get the Best Picture nomination because it's going to get a bunch of tech nominations, but man, have people cooled on this film. I think it's hanging on there. It's now in the little grouping of films down here at the bottom where it's like, you might get a nomination. These last 4, like Nickel Boys, Dune, and the next 2 I'm about to say, are really all sort of, I mean, any of them could lose their nomination spot. I think top 4 were a lock, 5 and 6 are safe bets. These are the ones where I'm like, I think these are still getting in. So my number 9 film is Sing Sing. I just think if A24 puts this in front of enough people, it gets in. I've seen the film. It's a great film. It's a film that I think people will vote for. They just have to see it. That's the only thing, is will you make enough people see this? How is A24 campaigning it? And are they going to try to prioritize The Brutalist at the last moment, perceiving that it's a stronger film, and punish Sing Sing? Hopefully not. But I think A24 can actually manage 2 Best Picture nominees this year. So who gets the last place spot, and what is it between? September 5 has popped a couple places. He did get a Golden Globe nomination, and it's kind of releasing at the right time. It's gotten in some places. It's one of those weird films. I've seen it. I really liked it, and it is a really hard film to give an acting nomination to. It's also a film that you don't feel compelled to give a directing nomination to. So just because it's not trending anywhere else doesn't necessarily mean there isn't passion for it in picture. But it's a really hard film to track because of that, because it feels like a film that it feels like women talking. It feels like a film that's going to get picture and screenplay and nothing else. Like if it happens, it gets picture and screenplay, and that's it. I would not predict it for anything else other than that. I don't think it gets into editing. I don't think it's anywhere else. I think 2 nominations is its cap. But one of those could be Best Picture. Another one is A Real Pain, which right now is looking at screenplay and supporting actor. Could it get Best Picture? Absolutely. People like the film. It does kind of feel like a small film that may not get in. Complete Unknown. People like the film, but they don't love the film. So, will there be enough people putting it in there to get it in there? Maybe. Maybe. um, I guess that's sort of the big question: is can that crack? Because anything else, I haven't predicted it for director or any of the acting prizes, so it would be basically like September 5, where it would drop like completely out of the race, essentially, or where to get like Dune, you know what I'm saying, where it gets picture and only tech. And like what other films are really strong in tech but don't get any acting or directing nominations? Is there anything that is close to getting? Not really. So for the 10th place spot, because Fox Searchlight is pretty good at campaigning, and they are pushing, they have both Real Pain and Complete Unknown. So this is tough. It's a toss-up. It does mean Paramount doesn't get a nomination this year with September 5, but I think I'm going to go with the 10th spot going to one of the Fox Searchlight films. And I think I'm going to go with A Complete Unknown. I want to go with A Real Pain, but it's because I want to go with A Real Pain that I'm going with A Complete Unknown. Because it's nothing ever lines up perfectly with the way you want it. And I think A Complete Unknown will take the spot. It's a perfectly fine film to be there. But I think A Real Pain, the conversation is really around Kieran. So I think that's where it's going to be. I think A Real Pain will walk away with supporting actor and screenplay, whereas A Complete Unknown will get picture, actor, supporting actor, and maybe like like a 4th nomination down below the line. So that's it. Those are my nominees. Just a couple other thoughts for you. Animated feature is really easy to predict this year because there's so few nominees. So yeah, it's Wild Robot, Flow, Inside Out 2, and then you just have to kind of figure out from there. Memoir of a Snail looks pretty good, and Wallace and Gromit looks pretty good. And are you comfortable with that? Do you believe Moana 2 gets snubbed? It's not necessarily the most critical beloved film, but it is one that is good at the box office. So if you're trying to figure out animated feature, those top 3 are locks. So if you're trying to figure out animated feature, you have to figure out, do I snub Wallace and Gromit or do I snub Memoir of a Snail? Memoir of a Snail is from IFC. They're not necessarily known for getting tons of Oscar nominations. And Wallace and Gromit, the argument there would be last year they did not nominate Chicken Run. However, they generally like Aardman, so as a studio and stop motion animation. So that's the only thing, is you have to decide, is Moana 2 in or out? And the safest bet is to say it's out, because it's not really a critical thing. However, it has made like $400 million in the box office, so I can completely understand. And it's not quite like Despicable Me 4, which made a lot of money at the box office either. So that's the question there. International feature, I think you're looking at definitely Amelia Perez, Seed of the Sacred Fig. The Girl with the Needle, I think it's in for those last 2 spots. It's tough. I'm surprised Green Border isn't here, but just based on what that was, it was a harrowing experience. Anyway, they could go for Vermiglia. That's been doing pretty well. They could go for Kneecap. Kneecap could hit here. It was shortlisted for original song. That doesn't always mean anything, but it was shortlisted as an original song. They could. I don't think it's gonna be Touch. There's some films I just don't think are going anywhere. So I don't think Flow or anything like that gets in here. So I would say fill out with, you know, Vermiglio and maybe I don't know. Pick the last film. Just pick a random film. Sometimes there's just a random film that pops in there from the international branch. It's just anything. I'm not feeling Kneecap as a nominee. It could be. Kneecap has Sony behind it, which is a strong thing to back it. So maybe Kneecap is a safe bet. Maybe Vermiglio's in fourth. I think the other three are solid. I think the other three are getting in for sure. Amelia, Sacred Fig, and Girl with the Needle are getting in for sure. I think the last two, maybe Vermiglio and Kneecap. Maybe Kneecap does get in. Maybe Sony helps it. So, documentary. I'm looking strongly at No Other Land and Sugarcane for sure. Other than that, I couldn't tell you honestly. That I've tried to predict the documentary branch before, and this is one of the weirdest things where they always seem to pick the ones other than like they'll pick like the one or the two obvious ones, and then they'll pick something that no one has seen, like that no one was talking about. They're the hardest branch to predict, I think, sometimes. So try to predict things that you wouldn't predict or that no one else is predicting. Try to predict one of those because it'll probably get in. So like Hollywood Black, you know, just something like that. Make sure you have one of those on your list. Like pick the four that you think, and then for the fifth one, literally just like throw a dart at the board, because I feel like every year they take one from the list that people say, oh, it's not gonna be one of those, and always one of those gets in. So that's just how the documentary branch goes. But I don't see how they snub Northern and Sugarcane. So those are the two that I think Porcelain War is probably in there also because of what it is. It's Ukraine. So if I had to say three spots, those would be the three. And then I don't feel confident enough in the documentary branch to try to even come up with what would the other two be. Will and Harper just feels like something they don't nominate. So I would say maybe not Will and Harper, but maybe that's exactly the kind of thing they nominate this year. I don't know. But they always have a nominee in there that I don't see anybody predicting, and it gets in. So that's it. Those are the top categories. Anyway, thanks for watching. Thanks for subscribing. I'll see you guys on the other side.